Darkcast Network. The light shines brightest on our indie podcasts.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. Murder victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers. In all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered. Repeating this, the fool can be killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.
Hey, hi, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Freaky as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Sarai, and I'm feeling real thankful lately for all of you who take the time to come and hang out and listen to me go on about whatever. This whole podcast started out as nothing but an idea, and I didn't know what was going to happen when I put out the first episode. But in this short amount of time, I've been able to connect with some amazing people. We joined a network, guys, Darkcast network. For all of you who don't follow me on Twitter or who haven't picked up on it yet, I guess, here's the news. But yeah, we joined an amazing network called Darkcast Network, and I couldn't have asked for a better group of people to be a part of because every single podcast in the network is just chef's kiss. And if you like what I cover on here, then you're definitely gonna like the other shows. So if you haven't already, be sure to give those guys a listen. I'll put a link to the network's website and socials in the show notes for you to check out. But yeah, it really goes without saying that I couldn't have been given this opportunity if it wasn't for the people who support us and who listen to the show. So a very big spooky thank you to all of you. And I'm excited to see what the new year has in store for us. But anyways, aside from all of that sappy bullshit, let's get on with the show, shall we? For this episode, I'll be covering an age-old unsolved case that is actually having its 73rd anniversary this year on December 1st, that just so happens to also be my birthday. So how do I feel about this? I'm not really sure, but nonetheless, this case is weird as shit. So today I'll be telling you about the Tamam Shud case, otherwise known as the mystery of the Somerton Man. So let's go back to November 30th, 1948. It's about 7 p.m. and John Bain Lyons and his wife are going on a walk on the Somerton Beach, which is just a few miles out of Adelaide. They notice a man sitting in the sand propped up against the seawall about 20 yards ahead of where they were. They see the man extend his arm up and then watch as it just falls limp beside him. They thought maybe he was just a drunk dude sitting on the beach. Half an hour later, another couple notices the same man lying on the beach still in the same position. They were walking on the seawall, which he was leaning against, so they got more of a bird's eye view of this guy. And they noticed he was immaculately, smartly dressed in a suit. He was wearing polished, smart shoes, and they thought him to be kind of out of place. They noticed that he's not reacting to the swarm of mosquitoes all over his face, and they thought he must be just a drunk dude asleep on the beach. Because I guess this happens a lot on Somerton Beach. I don't know. But it wasn't until the next morning when the man was still there and everyone started to realize this man was dead. Police were called and the body was taken to Royal Adelaide Hospital, where Dr. John Barclay Bennett notes that the man died no earlier than 2 a.m. During the autopsy, it was noted that his pupils were much larger than normal. His spleen was strikingly large and firm, and it was about 3 times its normal size. And his liver was filled with blood as well. In his stomach, they found a half-digested pastry, and more blood was pooling, which suggested poisoning, becoming more evident that this man's strange behavior at the beach wasn't because he was just sauced. It was because he was dying. After many tests on the blood and his organs, they were unable to identify any poison in his system, at least of any that were known at the time. Described to have some beefy calves, even though he was in his late 40s, he had legs of an athlete. His toes were weird wedge-shaped, which maybe hinted that he might have been a ballet dancer. The clothes that he was wearing that night was a shirt and tie, a pair of sports trousers, and a jacket. The trouser had the lining of one of the pockets repaired by an orange thread. He was also wearing a sweater, brown shoes, and it's also important to note that all of the tags were removed from each item of clothing. In his possession was a used bus ticket from the city to get to the beach, an unused railway ticket from the city to Henley Beach, a pack of juicy fruit gum, a box of matches, 2 combs, a pack of Army Club cigarettes, which had also contained 7 Cansita cigarettes. 1 half-smoked cigarette was also located on the collar of his shirt, and a second was tucked behind his ear. The description of the man was he was about 40 to 45 years old, 180 centimeters tall, or 5 foot 11 inches. He had gray eyes, fair to ginger-colored hair, slightly grayed around the temples, broad shoulders, no signs of manual labor on his hands. So I guess that meant that he didn't really have any callus built up on his hands. Again, they mentioned the weird wedge shape to his feet and the high pronounced calf muscles, which hinted that he maybe wore shoes with heels or boots, or he was a ballet dancer. Missing from his possession was his wallet, his ID, and he had no money on him either. From the autopsy, police were able to conclude that the body showed signs of poisoning. However, no poison was actually found. Nobody was able to verify if he'd poisoned himself or were they looking at a murder. So obviously, they have the question of who exactly is this man? What is his name? Fingerprints were taken and circulated all around, but no ID was ever made. Nobody ever identified the Somerton Man. Even with the body, nobody knew the cause of death, if it was a murder or suicide, or who this man even was. So let's fast forward to December 10th, 1948. The body of the Somerton Man is embalmed, and this is done to help ID the man. Police said that this was the first time they knew such an action was even needed. On January 14th, 1949, at Adelaide Railway Station, a brown suitcase is discovered with the label removed. According to the railway records, it was checked in after 11 a.m. on November 30th, 1948. Could this have belonged to the Somerton Man? The contents of the suitcase was a red checked dressing gown, size 7 red felt slippers, 4 pairs of underpants, pajamas, shaving items, a light brown pair of trousers with sand in the cuffs, an electrician's screwdriver, a table knife that had been cut down into a short, sharp instrument, a pair of sharpened scissors, a small square of zinc thought to have been a protective sheath for the knife or the scissors, a stenciling brush, which was commonly used by officers on merchant ships for stenciling cargo, a thread card of Barber brand orange waxed thread, the same type of thread used to repair the pocket lining of the Somerton Man's trousers, and all tags and labels were removed from every item of clothing. However, the names T. Keane, where Keane was spelled Keane, or Kean, were found on some of the items. A search concluded that no T. Keen was reported missing. The only clue that they really found was that the feather stitching on one of the coats had been identified as stitchwork common in the U.S., but searches of shipping and immigration records from across the country produced no leads. Incoming train records led the police to believe that the man had arrived at the Adelaide station by overnight train from either Melbourne or Port Augusta. So now it's July 24th, 1949. Coroner Thomas Cleland conducts an inquest, and the body of the Somerton Man and the possessions were re-examined. This wound up leading to the discovery of the hidden note. A small pocket had been sewn into the waistband of the Somerton Man's trousers, which was intended to hold a fob watch. However, that's not what they found. What they found instead was a small rolled-up piece of paper with the words Tamam, Shud printed on it. This torn bit of paper was found to have come from the last page of a book called the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which police were able to track down the exact copy that the torn page came from. A translation of the Rubaiyat became very popular in Australia during the war, as the original version is in Persian. The words found on the piece of paper, Tamam Shud, translated to, "It is ended." Also found in the copy of the book that the torn piece came from were faint indentations representing 5 lines of text. The letters written were initially thought to be words written in some foreign language. However, it was later determined to be some kind of code writing. Many experts were asked to help decipher the messages. However, all efforts were unsuccessful. A phone number was also found in the back of the book belonging to a nurse named Jessica Thompson, who lived about 400 meters north of the location of where the body of the Somerton Man was found. When Thompson was brought in for questioning, she denied knowing the Somerton Man, but when she was shown a casting of the bust of the man, it was noted that she'd been completely taken aback, to the point of giving the appearance that she was about to faint. So her reaction was telling a different story than what she was telling police. When she was interviewed again, Thompson told of an incident that took place several years ago. She had come home to be notified by her neighbors that an unnamed man had called and inquired about Thompson. No other information had come from this. It had also come to light that Thompson once gave a copy of the Rubaiyat to a man she had once known during the war. This man was named Alfred Buxall. However, when traced down, they were not only able to confirm that the man was still alive, he was also still in possession of the book Thompson had given to him all those years ago. It was also completely intact. And this is all the information police were able to find regarding the strange and mysterious death of the Somerton Man. However, that hasn't stopped others from attempting to solve the case. Jerry Feltis, a retired policeman, was going through case files when he discovered a statement that was given in 1959 by a man who had been on Somerton Beach on the evening that the Somerton Man was presumed to have died. The witness reported seeing a man carrying another man on his shoulders near the water's edge. He was walking toward the spot where the body was found, though at the time the witness had assumed it was just a man helping out his drunk friend, of course. No other information ever came of this. So let's fast forward to June 2010. Photos of Robin Thompson, Jessica Thompson's eldest son, who was a little over a year old in 1948, were found to have resembled the Somerton Man, leading others to believe that maybe the reason for Jessica Thompson's elusiveness when asked about the identity of the body was the factor of some kind of affair which led to a son that did not belong to her husband. This would also explain why Thompson didn't want her name released or on any records regarding the case. There was also the theory that the Somerton Man was involved in espionage, which would better explain the reasoning behind all of the missing clothing labels. This also led to speculation that maybe Jessica Thompson was also a spy and was in cahoots with the Somerton Man. In 2013 interviews with Jessica's daughter, Kate Thompson, it's revealed that Jessica also spoke fluent Russian, though she never knew where she learned it from. She was also very interested in communism, and Jessica had admitted to her daughter that she knew the Somerton Man's true identity, along with someone higher than the police force. In May of 2021, so real recent, the body of the Somerton Man was exhumed in hopes that authorities can build a DNA profile to find out the true identity of the Somerton Man. So now you're all caught up on the Tamam Shud case, and who knows, maybe this DNA testing will finally answer some of the long-asked questions, and maybe we'll be able to finally solve this 73-year-old case. So everyone, thank you for sticking it out with me to the end. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to today's episode. I hope you have a wonderful day with all of your friends and family and loved ones, eating all your favorite foods and desserts. And I can't wait to see you next week. All right, bye.
Been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder. Murder victims show evidence of having been partially devoured by their murderers. In all cases, the killers are eating the flesh of the people they murdered. Repeating this, a fool can be killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.